So this webinar will be setting precedent for us on what will transpire tomorrow in the Digital Financial Literacy Summit, where I shall have different players coming on board and other in line, the fintechs, the traditional banking, and telecoms coming on board, as well as other practitioners to take us through this journey, the digital journey which we've started. Of course, it also has its challenges and opportunities associated with it. And that's why today we're coming in with this topic of safety guidelines through the digital journey. What should we look out for? What are some of the safety guidelines should we look at? And in any case, what are some of the risks could be associated with these digital platforms? Some of us would be looking forward to use and explore, and of course, as we're getting excited about them. So as we hear from Mr. Kakulu and Diana, who will be taking us through this session, those are some of the things we need to look out to here and paint a clear picture on how should the digital journey be. What are some of the challenges and opportunities should you look out for? Over to you, Diana. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Benedict, and the entire UIBS team. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Diana Akulu Wanyama. I'm going to be the moderator for this session. I'm the chairperson for Digital Frontiers Association, and we will be taking you through the safety guidelines through the digital journey. But before we can take you through the safety guidelines with the digital journey, I just want to introduce ourselves as the Digital Frontiers Association, just to tell you about who we are and what we do. So like Benedict has shared, we are in the Digital Literacy Week. So we are going to talk through, first of all, Digital Frontiers Association, who we are and what we do. So who we are, we were founded in 2017, mainly to bring together professionals in various sectors with interest in digital finance in Uganda. The sectors in this case are commercial banks, telecoms, fintechs, microfinance institutions, and development organizations. We are affiliated with the Digital Frontiers Institute of South Africa. Our vision is to be the platform for digital finance professionals to influence policy and product innovations that foster better financial inclusion as a key enabler for socio-economic transformation. Then our mission is to nurture digital finance development and facilitate collaboration among its professionals. So that is who we are. Now what we do have quarterly events, the ones we call the Digital Coffee Place, where people come and sit and discuss the different pertinent issues in relation to digital finance in Uganda, in our country. We also do facilitate training for digital finance professionals. If you want to grow your career in digital finance, you can always reach out to us and we assist and help facilitate that kind of training. We also do have stakeholder engagements with government, with fintechs, with agritechs and development partners like FSD Uganda and others. We also contribute to Africa's digital agenda through the Digital Frontiers Institute. We collaborate with other digital finance players in the different countries in Africa to grow the digital agenda for financial inclusion in Africa. So what are our objectives? One, our objectives is to promote and advocate digital finance awareness and innovation to transform our society. It is also to influence policy in relation to digital financial services. We also encourage and maintain professional cooperation and exchange between members, or for those who have done digital courses like certificate in digital money and leading digital money markets, we encourage the different professionals to come together and exchange information. We also arrange for training programs. We do facilitate awarding of professional qualifications in the area of digital finance. Our objectives is also to provide a self-regulated platform for digital finance practice in Uganda. Our objective is also to advance and protect occupational and professional interest of members in the association, mainly in the financial services industry. These are our core values. Our core values are passion, basically passionate about digital and its importance, innovation, basically unleashing creativity for value, depending on what product you have, what process, what idea. Innovation is one of our core values. Unity, basically, is to seek harmony and stability. Professionalism, we hold high standards in order to deliver and exceed expectations. And then respect. Our country, Uganda, is a country where people are humble and respect each other. So respect is also one of our values. We demonstrate respect and integrate it in whatever we do. So basically, this is how you can reach out to us. I encourage you, since we are in the Financial Literacy Week, I encourage you to enroll for our course in digital money. These different acronyms that you're seeing here, CIDM, these are the different phases in certifications. That is CIDM, that is Certificate in Digital Money. After you've done that, then you move to the next level, that is Leading Digital Money Markets, that's the LDMM. Then we have OMM, which is Operationalizing Mobile Money. And then CDFP, where our current speaker is at. He's going to, maybe he'll tell us more about it. That is the Certified Digital Financial Services Professional. At that point, you have done all these other levels and you're at our levels. So we do have events like I'd shared earlier. And then we have the various channels where you can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, email, and on LinkedIn. They are all there on the screen. Otherwise, thank you very much. That is a brief introduction about who we are and what we do. Feel free to reach us in case of anything. So over to our speaker today. Our speaker today is Farouk Kakuru, who's going to speak to us today. So Farouk, you are welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, good afternoon.
Allow me to share my presentation. I'll be presenting to you today about transitioning from traditional savings to digital savings and safety guidelines through the digital journey. My name is Kakuru J.E. Farouk. I prefer to be called Farouk. Good afternoon once again and welcome to this presentation. Getting into the gist of the information. Right now, traditional savings accounts are offered by banks, credit unions, and are easy to open to access your money. They normally pay a small amount of interest, but are safer than storing your money under the mattress since they are insured. This category speaks to a lot of Ugandans who are not yet banked, and we shall get into the detail later. While a digital savings account is a paperless, fast, and secure way of opening an account on a digital platform, with the help of a digital savings account, the account holder can avail banking services like instant transfer. Additionally, there are free SMSs, free emails, and also value-added services. So the point in question here is then how can we make the digital services successful? What prerequisites do we need to have in place to have digital services in Uganda? One is digital empowerment through trainings on benefits. In this case, you will find that most of the people who have not yet adapted to digital savings are those in the rural or rural-urban areas and even the urban areas. The reason they've not yet adapted is because we've not yet sold to them the benefit for utilizing this particular account. However, if you're to position a benefit based on a use case or a scenario that suits that particular customer or particular human in an area, then it will be easy to position digital savings. Let me give you an example. If we're told today, the most common digital saving account we have is Momo Pay through mobile money, and you'll find that the most use cases, you'll find them in the high-end or affluent and some supermarkets, pharmacies, and so on. But then when you look at the majority of the people who are using mobile money, the low-income earners who you'll find in the markets, downtown, or in taxis. So my take point here would be is if we were to empower these people have a wallet where to receive their money through a merchant service. For example, imagine going to a taxi and you're using your mobile money to pay for goods and services. If SafeBorder has managed to do it and it's successfully working, as much as we have some churn due to the different borders not using this service, it's still something that would be empowered through training. Then secondly, we need to avail a stable network, internet penetration for both USSD and app-based applications. How can we do this? We need to find out areas where we find multiple failures, that is to say external application down, maybe service provider unreachable, those different command errors that we receive when we dial our *165#, so on. Even some banks have USSD platforms. For example, Bank of Africa has *246#. And yes, we are not immune to certain failures on USSD. This is an industry problem that needs to be resolved. With digital, for you to be able to successfully sell to a customer and retain that customer, the services need to be up and running and also reliable as and when the customer needs it. Then for app-based applications, you need internet availability. It also needs to be affordable. For example, right now, I would think that telecoms would be more interested in having different app developers who are financially trying to create financial literacy, and financial penetration in different areas to have more of a reverse billing module or a subsidized fee to access the app. If that is done, then you would have people using the app to enjoy the services there. Then also roll out an acceptable digital identity structure. Why do I call it an identity structure? It's because for any digital wallet or digital saving to be successful, you need an identity, because an identity is then what will speak into the profile of that customer. Currently, as Uganda, we have the national ID. However, the use case right now is still very limited to identification. And if it's just identification, then you're cutting out other use cases like being able to scale this customer or profile this customer for credit or profile this customer for things like insurance, because there is still yet to have a robust integration and acceptance for these particular IDs. We need also to harmonize customer due diligence standards for e-money wallets and low-risk bank deposits. For example, if you want to open an account for an individual in Kampala, you're asking for the same details for an individual in Kampala, even that one who is up country, who may even not maybe have their national ID on them. They may not have a valid ID. But if at all they did register, why do you need the valid ID or the physical ID to scan? I would believe that we should move the way India has gone, whereby authentication of identity or due diligence is done by a system called Aadhaar. What Aadhaar has done for India is that even with my thumbprint, for those who don't have thumbprint, they can use an iris scan to enable this customer enjoy services, because it stores different details of customers or different details of nationalities in India. It has been scaled up to have about 1.2 1.26 billion people in India. That's a very great milestone. And that's about, I think, 93% penetration of the Indian market. So if we can harmonize and have something acceptable for due diligence using our current ID structure, I think we can go a large scale in having digital services acceptable within Uganda. Then also need to support development of interoperability between the banks and non-banks or e-money issuers. Right now, the kind of mode of operation that we have, you'll find that a fintech is working, a bank is working. The only time they connect is if they are going to have an agreement to make money. So most of the times, the solutions that they will have will not be necessarily customer-centric, but there will be more of income-based or revenue-based services. But if at all we were to have synergies in between these two companies and we have them cooperate and interoperate, it will be much easier to solution for the customer based on the different needs. I'll give you an example. Right now with mobile money, right now with the different apps we have on the banking platforms, you'll find that the use cases are the same from bank X to bank Y. And that is a very big challenge because the needs of a person in Kampala are not necessarily the needs of the person in Gulu. In West Nile, for example, their bill payments are through Wenereko. And in Kampala, their bill payments are through Umeme. So specifically for power. So if at all you build an app and it can only pay for Umeme, then you're cutting out your customer or your potential customer who is in West Nile. So to me, I think if we can operate in a way that is more of interconnected, then we can have a much better scale of using the digital services. Also, we need to enable banking institutions to pursue digital saving partnerships with non-banking entities. Yes, right now we do have a few. For example, I've seen based on my research, we do have Barclays and Airtel doing the Barclay Group kind of saving. Then we have CBA and MTN hosting more cash. If we need to develop the digital savings, then we need to scale up more and not limit to only a few lions in the jungle to do the service. The more lions you have in the jungle, it means the cost to serve these customers will come much, much down. And once that is achieved, then you will be able to solution even for the person who is in the low income and category, and also those who are in the rural areas. We also need to expand the digital financial services infrastructure ecosystem. Why do I call it that? Right now, the ecosystem is basically limited to a few services who or which are positioned to a specific banking need. I'll call it a banking need is because more of the digital services that are made right now are informed by the customers who are coming to the bank, but not necessarily informed by the communities around the bank. I'll give you an example. Right now, you'll go downtown and you'll try to look out for how many of those downtown dwellers have an actual bank account, and it will be difficult to find one. People are keeping their money under suitcases as they serve their customers. Whereas someone there can have a mobile money account. So it means that banks are losing out on liabilities that would have been initially saved by banks or through banks, but the only reason is they have not yet come up with an acceptable or an insight-led kind of solution for customers in this particular bracket. Moving on, I'll give you an example of sample digital accounts in Uganda. We have two types. That's MoCash, which is dedicated, and Barclays Group account, which is also dedicated. The account holder or entity class is basically CBA for MoCash. It's a commercial bank. And then Barclays Bank, which is also a commercial bank, which is Absa right now. Then the technological driver of this and distribution is MTN for MoCash. And then through Barclays, it's Airtel as an MNO. Then the technological interface service name is the mobile phone and through mobile money. So when you look at that, mobile money for MTN and both Airtel. When you look at that, then we come to the delivery modules. Right now, banks are still at a very big advantage, but I don't think that advantage will be sustainable for the next 10 years. Why? Because we do have amendments in the Financial Institution Act that can also give an MNO the capability to save money through as an institution, just like what Safaricom is doing right now. So right now we do have a banking institution which supports MNOs and fintechs to save the money which their retail agent has gotten from a customer or the saver. That is the model. But how about if at all we were to enable ourselves to go further and say, if a bank has the capability to interoperate with this fintech, then even if there is an opening up of the current restrictions, then you'll find that banks will be able to stay in the ecosystem. I also give you an example below here of the current national ID system focused countries, and that is Kenya, India, and Tanzania, plus Uganda, of course. All these countries have national IDs, and they are enabled for eID. What is an eID? An eID is basically an ID that can be accepted, also accessed electronically. For example, we all know that when you're registering for mobile money or MTN, basically the updates that are ongoing, it's very easy for you to give in the back of your national ID. They'll scan your barcode, and all that information will be relayed to MTN or Airtel, and they will be able to pick up the details. So that's the eID functionality that we are talking about. So that being scaled up to the levels of India, I believe we are just yet to develop much more, because as per now, we are scratching the surface. Moving forward, safety guidelines through the digital journey. Having spoken about all those above, you know that once you get a digital customer who has a digital saving account, then you need to be able to give them comfort that the service that you're giving them is secure. Why is it very important? Digital security is an encompassing term which includes the tools you can use to secure your identity, assets, technology in the online and mobile world. These tools you can use to protect your identity include antivirus software, web services, biometrics, secure personal devices, and also carry on to your everyday services. So if we get into the safety guidelines, first of all, we have to acknowledge that everyone is a potential target. If we do acknowledge that, it's the first guideline that will help us then to accept there is a risk. Then how do we mitigate this risk? So the first level of defense is keeping all your softwares up to date. By softwares up to date, yes, both mobiles and computer-based devices, it can be a PC or a laptop, have software being run. And every now and then there are patches which are released by the developer or the vendor of that particular entity to enable you to secure your device. So it's very key for us to keep all our softwares updated on our devices. Then also on top of that, you need to install antivirus protection. These will help you to protect you from viruses which have the capacity to bring on things like malware, and also to identify phishing scams from different emails that you receive or different messages that you receive. Then also you need to practice good password management measures. By good password management measures is you don't have to have a very complicated password, but have a password that you think is not easy to identify by a person. For example, you're born in 1986, you don't need to use the 1986 in your password. I'll give you a hint. Come up with an animal name, come up with a few numbers and one special character. You have a password, and it's as strong as possible, because an animal name, I think the least animal name can be cat, which is like three letters, a special character, and then you say maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, or a complicated number, depending on your thought process. That is the simplest way to do a password. Then another thing about password management is never save your password close to where you use it from. For example, I would opt for having a password manager there are very many password managers that one can use to store passwords if you use multiple platforms. For example, Google Chrome has the capability to store a password, but it's not the safest to use. There are very many password managers that you can use that can help you store your passwords. There's one which is called Vault that you can also use to store passwords. Then lock your device before leaving unattended. If it's a laptop, Control-Alt-Delete and lock your device. If it's a mobile phone, enable your fingerprint, enable PIN, so that when you're away from your mobile phone, you can easily know that it's secure and whoever gets in there cannot do transactions or access personal information that is only privy to you. We are in a very digital world that is also very susceptible to hacking. So we need to be adaptive of the different security environments that we have to have in place to enable security. Also, you need to avoid being caught by phishing scams. Phishing is basically simply saying someone throws you a link. It's basically a hook. That's why they termed it as phishing. It's a simple hook. Through links, it can be through tapping on an advert on your mobile phone, and it leads you to a web portal, or it leads you to another app which will ask you for your information like date of birth, your name, and it will ask you to link things like your email. Basically, what this person wants is to get your personal information so that they can then use this personal information against you by utilizing it on the different web pages that you access. Some of the phishing scams that we have today have the capability to enable what we call ransomware on your machine. Once you go and follow this link, what it will do, it will take you to a page that will pick information. After picking that information, the hacker who has developed this phish will be able to freeze your laptop or freeze your device and then ask you for money so that they can release the device for you to use again. The best way to avoid all this is just don't click on any link that you don't trust. Always look out for HTTPS on every web page that you go to transact on. This is very important because it then shows you that this web page is secure. Also protect sensitive data. If at all you know this data is sensitive, then you do not need to go about saving it on unsecured devices. If you know your mobile phone does not have the level of security and you work in a corporate company, for example, then it's not good to access your your work email using that particular device. I think you'll find out that even Microsoft disables that capability before you have different authentications to enable that. On top of that, this said is that I'll give you the top 20 cybersecurity threats of 2020. Sorry, the top 10. Phishing attacks that, like we've talked about. We also have remote worker endpoint security. So most of us who work at home or remotely may not know that once you work at home, you need to be sure that the accessibility that's through for internet is secure enough to enable you access the different web portals that you access. If at all you use Wi-Fi, which is public, for example, at a cafe, you're not certain of the security interface of that particular Wi-Fi, and it could open your device up for hacking. Then cloud jacking. This is for those who use cloud to store details and information. Then sophisticated and targeted ransomware attacks. Some of these happened in 2018. We saw different corporations being attacked by different hackers globally and asked for ransomware. Of course, there are deepfakes. Deepfakes is basically someone being able to develop a face ID that looks exactly like you to pass on instructions. How will this work? For example, if my bank needs me to give a video authentication of approval to withdraw large sums of money, just like we are having here a conversation or a presentation, someone will record my video and then we'll use that video and change the audio to match the description they want to send. So for example, you'll see people sending videos. The face is probably supposed to be saying something else, but they will synchronize the lips to the words they want to say to the public. So these are also possibilities. However, as an individual, it's a very lean chance that you'll experience this. These are usually targeted for the high net worth or affluent customers that we have. Then mobile malware. Malware basically just installs different softwares onto your device that will slow it up and also compromise its security and give access to people who are accessing your device remotely. Then also we do have 5G and Wi-Fi security vulnerabilities. We are lucky that we do not yet have 5G here, but at least for Wi-Fi, I can speak to that. So Wi-Fi, as much as we do like to use Wi-Fi, it opens you up to a lot of security vulnerabilities, especially if where it's hosted is not secure enough. Someone can easily hack into your device and know what you're doing, and also take over your device and even take information as and when they need. Thank you for that. I'll give you a brief about my journey after this presentation. I am Kakuru Farouk. Currently, I'm a student with Digital Finance Frontiers. And this is an institution that provides digital courses all the way, like Diana said, from digital money until you become a certified digital finance professional or practitioner. What this journey helps you to achieve or to do is to open your mind to the digital world. Yes, most of us will think that digital or digitization is just about the different banking apps, but there is a lot more in digitization that you can learn and understand and match the world or the global world. And why this is very important for you to take interest in, it will open up your journey, not only in the banking world, but also to the different scopes that can also be scaled digitally. Thank you. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Farouk, for that wonderful presentation. It has been mind-opening. Just to add to that, I know we didn't give an initial brief profile about Farouk, of which he has summarized. I just want to say more about Farouk Kakuru. He began his career in Stanbic Bank as a teller, and he grew through the ranks. Currently, he's the relationship manager for electronic channels at Bank of Africa. He is also a Digital Frontiers Association member. He is a student, like I had shared earlier. He has studied a certificate in digital money with the Digital Frontiers Institute, South Africa. Those are our affiliates. He is a passionate and energetic person. He's a high performance oriented leader. He focuses on customer centricity. Basically, his current role in the bank where he works and with the certification in digital money where he is, makes him that complete person to be able to achieve and forward the digital agenda. He loves to connect with people and basically inform himself about the knowledge and the current trends that are going on in the world and in the country. So I would call it a mantra. His mantra is looking at digital methods to simplify work. As we know the world today, a lot has transitioned. We are moving into the digital. We have actually moved into the digital age. So you find that a lot of things these days are more done digitally than in the traditional way. Take, for example, banks. You find that you need to use online banking. The rate of visiting the queues, the branches is reducing because there is more convenience and comfort using the digital platforms. So basically that is one of his passions, giving them a better service using these channels. So he's transformed the onboarding process as an individual while he was working in South Africa. He has transformed the onboarding process for internet banking from 8 hours to almost an instant process, which has led to an impressive growth in 200 clients and above. So basically, that is him looking at leading in digital finance in Uganda and working with all the colleagues in Digital Frontiers Association, the association which I chair, to influence policy, speed up digitization, and we move towards improving our economy and having a more, I would call it cash light. So many people say cashless economy, but I like to say a cash light economy, because we want to merge or use both the digital channels and a bit of cash channels. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you once again to this series, this Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month that has been organized by Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services. I encourage you to share your questions in the Q&A section right at the bottom of this screen. Share your views, share your feedback in the chat. They are all welcome. So right now, I just want to thank the UIBS team for all the good work they have been doing. I just want to remind our audience that you can visit the Twitter handle with the hashtag YourMoneyCan. You can post, you can share your views over there, and visit the portal as well. The campaign, I would like to thank the strategic partners, that is Bank of Uganda, Uganda Bankers Association, Financial Sector Deepening Uganda, FITSPA, Uganda Insurance Association, and Summit Consulting. Right now, I'd like to just engage our speaker today with a few questions, and then we will go over to the audience, and then you can ask your questions, and then we'll see how best to forward this whole digital agenda. So Farouk, the first question that I have for you today is, I just want to thank you for your presentation, and based on what you have presented today, I would like to ask on behalf of the audience that how can we make the digital journeys more appealing to the rural population? I know you have taken us through how to transition from traditional to digital. You have also taken us through the safety guidelines while using these digital channels and through the digital journey. So as we do this, how can we make this more appealing to the rural population? Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. One most important thing to understand is that for a rural customer, you need to understand their ecosystem. By ecosystem, I would mean what does the rural customer do, or what does the rural population do? What works just like for a person in Kampala will not work for a rural setup. Most of these rural settings are agricultural based. So meaning, as much as we solution for a digital journey for these particular customers, it should have an insight-led kind of development. Look out for what they do and how they do it, and then pitch in, but don't work the way we work today, whereby you say, I have a solution to save money and send money, because that may not work for them. I'll give you an example. I know in places like Ibanda, where they are largely dealing in coffee, what happens is that there are people who buy coffee from the farmers, and after the coffee is bought, they will take it either to the factory direct, and then there are also those middlemen. So if at all you're going to develop something for a rural setup like this, then you need to understand the entire journey of the coffee from the time it's planted to the time it is taken to the factory, and then to the time it's transported maybe to Kampala for export or developed into a product. Meaning our digital product then should solution for that customer. So for example, what would a coffee cultivator need before they end up in the factory with their service? First and foremost, we would look at things like enabling them to access credit. This credit then is in solution for their harvest. It is in solution for their arrangement for the next cultivation season. And it's also in solution for the different needs that they may need before the next cycle of harvest. So if you develop a solution that can also incorporate then the middleman to make a payment, and also the factory to be able to serve payments, maybe through bulk payments to those particular farmers, then you'll have closed the gap for this particular rural setup, or what I would call the rural population. So what that entails is that we need to understand their need before we develop any digital service that will solve a need. That said, I believe if we do that, we can be successful in scaling up digital savings in a rural setup. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much, Kakuru, for that wonderful explanation. As you know, the rural people are the majority and in Uganda. And this being a digital age that we are in, it is important for us to think about them as we transition into this digital journey. Yeah, so our next question for you, Farouk, is how can we further make digital safety a major selling point to cash handlers? You have taken us through the safety guidelines. You took us through what we should do and how do we make sure we protect our information on the digital channels. So how do we make this a major safety selling point for those people who are so much into cash? Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. The first thing you need to help a cash person understand or to appreciate a digital saving is to understand why do they save cash, or why do they prefer cash. Most of the times, the reason one would prefer cash, for example, is because of the convenience it creates when you want to spend it and the acceptability. So if at all you have a digital platform that does not have the convenience and acceptability, then you cannot solution for a person who wants to hold cash. So for example, I gave you an example of a taxi or a matatu. Today, I find it a little bit hard to understand why SafeBoda has managed to have a cashless kind of transaction in place, and it's successfully working in some points of the country. However, for the taxis which have been in this journey, it has not yet been solutioned. So if at all, for example, I'll give you an example of the telecos. If at all they understand what does the taxi tout need to do with their cash on a daily, how can we help to have this person appreciate digital? Then it will help us a solution for that. But the very most important thing is, one, the availability when you need it, meaning in our digital space, then that will speak to reliability and stability of the channel. Then two, the convenience. Convenience means that if I'm paying for a transaction, the authentication for cash is basically looking at it and checking if it's paper money and it's valid. So for digital then, it means that the authentication is through pins, which you need to sell to that particular cash handler. Then when you come to things like expenses, yeah, it means that you will have to understand the entire ecosystem of that cash handler. If we are to go to a taxi tout, you'll find that in a day, they will get things like maybe they might pay a fine because they're misusers of the road, so they normally pay traffic fines. They might need to pay for fuel. They might need to give people balances. But this also can be solutioned digitally, because once you're paying digitally, then it means you're only paying the value and you don't need to get a balance back. Then for paying fees and paying fuel stations, it means that you scale up your availability of agents or merchants at these particular petrol stations to enable them purchase their fuel there and then. And when they need to buy spare parts, they may not go to City Oil. They may need to go to places like Chiseka. So it means in Chiseka, make sure that every merchant there who sells spare parts has a merchant ID. If you solution for this and you have maybe a scale of 20 taxis, for example, to solution for a digital payment and digital savings, trust me, in the next 1 year, you will have a very large uptake, because you've created one use cases that are acceptable, you've created a convenience, but also you need to educate, which is very important. You need to educate both the customers who are using these services and also the beneficiaries, meaning even the boss, the owner of the taxi. You need to make sure that if they're sending money to him using the merchant account at the end of the day, he's benefiting his full value. For example, if he's guaranteed that his taxi at the end of the month maybe gives him 900,000, just a sample figure, then it should not decrease to something like 800, because it will then create a fear that the charges are so high. So you need to create convenience, acceptability in terms of the use cases. Then also you need to make sure that it's very much affordable for the people who are going to use it, both the person paying and the person who is receiving the payment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that wonderful explanation. Some of the key things that I've picked is educate, educate, educate. These people who use cash a lot sometimes are not aware of the benefits of convenience and security that digital brings to them. So this is a message to us, to the UIB team, you know, and all of us who are into this whole financial awareness and literacy for our population. I just want to remind the audience that feel free to ask some questions. We have the chat option down there and the Q&A option where you can ask questions. I can see some questions coming through on the chat. Before we deal those questions, I have one more question about digital literacy to Farouk. Farouk, when we talk about digital literacy, are we being inclusive? That means we include both rural and urban, or is it just an urban trend? Is it something just for the people in the urban areas, or are we being fully inclusive?
Thank you, Diana. I think digital literacy, yes, as much as it's stated in English, it is actually inclusive. But when it comes to what normally kills a strategy or a thought process is the execution. So if at all you're going to do digital literacy and you're going to target people in the rural setting, then of course you will have to change to the rural setting kind of operation. I'll give you an example why I think it's inclusive, but the way we do it is what makes it inclusive. In Kampala here, it's very easy to put it on the likes of Zoom, the likes of television, and people would concentrate and watch. But then when you go to the rural setting, for someone to sit and watch a TV, even if it's a commercial, just talking about digital literacy, it may take guts. Even here in Kampala, most of the times when those informative adverts come on, people switch off. So what we need to do is to then use the most touch points that those people have. There are areas or towns where I have moved and I've found that people listen to a lot of their rural community radios. And also this information is also relayed in the kind of language that is most sought for in that particular community. That then will mean that if you're passing on information, understand the community you're going to, understand your audience, and then solution based on your audience. Once you have that, then your digital literacy will be all inclusive for that particular community. But then we cannot have a one solution suits all, because as Uganda, you know, we have about 56 tribes. If you're to go by 56 tribes and you see that you're going to have to translate every communication in those 56 tribes, yes, you'll be relatively right, but then it will mean that you don't know that there are some tribes which are widely acceptable in certain areas. So just understand which tribe, which language is acceptable in that particular area, solution for that. Then what are the different things you can relate to your digital literacy? When I was talking about Ibanda, I talked about coffee, because Ibanda is a town that has been growing because of coffee. As much as they do millet, it's more of substantial whereby it's for their benefit in the families, but coffee is what drives and brings up Ibanda today. So if I told you to go to Ibanda, then solution and whatever you do in literacy related to coffee or cows, people there will understand, because it's speaking the language they know. But if you go there and you're speaking of things like, maybe let me see, what do we do in Kampala? You're speaking the corporate jargon, people will easily switch off. So that's what then will make your digital literacy successful in the different areas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Farouk, for those wonderful insights. We have some comments coming through from the chat. We have one from Richard Akuze. He says, digital money is the way to go. However, there is need to increase security and safety of the digital money. Transaction costs should be removed. So that is a comment from Richard. Thank you, Richard, for those that comment and insights. Maybe Kakuri could speak to it, and join it with this question that is coming from Tukwatanise. Tukwatanise Bonita says, thank you for the presentation. My question is, will the social and psychological aspects of interpersonal contacts and customer needs in this matter be a barrier to creation of fully automated electronic banks without staff?
Thank you, Richard and Tukwatanise. I'll first go to Richard. Yes, you're right. You would want the transaction costs to be removed, but I'll advise you that currently, if you want the transaction costs to be removed, it will be a little bit unfair. Why do I say unfair? To both the institution and even to you, the customer. Most of the times, these transaction costs are not done just to inconvenience the customer, but then they help in making sure that the channel is available and stable, because these channels pay what they call annual maintenance fees for these services to be available. So for them to be available, there is a cost that will be incurred. And this is informed by what the financial institution would have incurred if at all they use the traditional way of transacting. I'll give you an example. We did a survey in 2019 of how much the bank would incur on every customer lining up to do a transaction. And it came out to about 12,000 Uganda shillings. Whereas that same transaction done on mobile, using either mobile wallet or internet banking, was costing the bank about 500 shillings. So if the bank was to charge you just 500 shillings as a bare minimum, then it means that it's only meeting the cost. It's not meeting the extra cost to pay for the annual maintenance. So for me, I think the way we position the security, the safety of a digital channel should not be related to the cost, but then we should sell the benefit and convenience that you're giving to the customer. Give you an example in the normal way. When I used to pay school fees back then, there were a lot of conmen in the banking halls. Right now, students have an option for school pay. School pay, a parent will use their mobile money or use the mobile app of the bank and enable payment of school fees. So just imagine the two scenarios. You've gone to the banking hall, someone says, I want to help you to pay, because you know it's a bank, you think everyone in there is faithful and honest to the financial institution. But that's not the case. There are some people dressed in suits who are targeting your money. Whereas there is an app out there which is secure, which is going to enable you to make that payment without involving transport and also without insecurity of you being conned, because you're using a bank app to pay or mobile money to pay. And the security then comes back to you, the customer. If we then look at the few guidelines I gave, like the pins, be able to protect your pin with a mobile money transaction, whether you're using USSD or you're using the MTN mobile app or you're using a bank app, they have biometrics, some have pins, and all these services, as long as you're using it in the acceptable measures, like we discussed prior, then you'll have to do your transaction without fear of the insecurity that may occur. Then secondly, in case your money gets misplaced or your money goes to maybe a wrong account or something, there is also a chance for reversal. But then remember, when they steal it, you can't reverse that happening. That said, let me go to Kwatanise. Yes, if we do fully automate, the biggest fear right now is that banks or traditional banks will be staffless. But my notion is no, it won't be that way. Of course, there will be staff who will be maintained to enable these services run frequently and stable and reliably. Why do I say so? The ATM was introduced in Uganda, I think, in either 1998 or 1999, about there. I had a story of a customer consultant who was there by the time it happened. And he says most customers did not want the ATM, they feared it. So right now, it's just like that. The way staff and customers feared the ATM for taking jobs is the same fear we have right now for digitization and electronic banking. But let me give you a gist of what would happen in the ideal scenario. So if for example, you are a teller today and you've seen that they've brought a cash deposit machine which can receive deposits from the customers, and you can no longer receive deposits. So you used to do 80 transactions a day, now you're doing 40. How do you make yourself relevant to be considered needed or to be considered a clerical staff that is needed for that financial institution to stay in service? It means you have to look out for things like relationship management, lead generation, and also focus on what I would call beneficial or fruitful engagements with customers. When I was a salesperson, I used to do a lot of selling the bank's products. But through that, I used to pick a lot of insights which I would forward to the digital team based on what our customers need. And that informed a lot on what the developments they did could be. So I believe if you're such a staff that makes the intention to look out for what a customer needs, and then to make sure that you're future ready. By future ready is that you've adapted to the digital world by taking courses like the CDFP. Then you'll understand what digital is all about. You may end up, first of all, being a digital professional like I am, meaning you'll stay employed. Then two, if you're not employed, you may end up as a fintech owner or a fintech vendor through gaining this knowledge, because most people think that fintechs are run by people who have done IT. That's not the case. You may know IT, but as long as you know a solution that can solve a problem and you bring it to market and people accept it because it is solving their problem, just like Safe Border, then you'll be needed in the next era. Meaning just make sure that you're future ready by adapting to the new waves. As long as you do that, you'll stay relevant in this financial institution.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kakuru, for those really deep insights and explanation. I know much as we're in the digital age, like you have shared, there are some things that you cannot digitize. You can't digitize or automate the human interaction. You can't digitize empathy. You can't digitize that whole relationship management. because at the end of the day, we will have to marry the two, the automation and the human interaction. That's a very good question to Kwatanise, because that is the reality of what is happening in the world and in the country. There's another question from Edwin Biaruhanga. He says, we need to define the parameters of digital literacy. So how do we measure digital literacy?
Okay, thank you, Edwin. First of all, parameters for digital literacy. Then I would come back to very simple. First of all, you'll understand what will enable someone to be digitally ready to transact. That is the basic understanding of digital literacy. So first and foremost is understanding in the populace that you're dealing with, how many of them at least have a mobile phone to start with. If they do have a mobile phone, how many others have a SIM card? Because we do have Ugandans who have a SIM card but do not have a mobile phone, and they will only use this SIM card if they need to withdraw money off mobile money. So yes, digital literacy then will come in if you understand those few questions. Access to internet, access to network. Because as we know, digital, it has a scale of communication it will rely on, so that then the digital platforms can interplay. So if you to go to an area where it's remote, there is no network, there is no network in terms of internet, and the normal network, which is the old GPRS, which maybe may not host a normal banking app, then you need to understand how can you digitize payments of those particular customers in such a community. So the measure of digital literacy in such a community is what particular transaction do they have that can you bring close to digitization? Let me give you an example of digitization without the normal platforms. Right now, if you're to go to refugee camps, you may find people who have refugee IDs and also might have unique codes in case someone wants to send money. So this unique code that you send money to and it's accepted by maybe a shop next door to withdraw money off it, because the shop might have the access to the platform that will withdraw money off that platform. However, remember the authentication then would be a problem, because as much as you have a code, authentication would be a problem if there is no ID. So the refugee ID then will become the particular measure for your authentication, and you correlate it with the person. So once we talk about digital literacy, we have to look at it in a scale of both the normal affluent customer, the middle class, but also the rural class, where the measures or the parameters used to measure digital literacy are different. If we have that understood and if well defined, then we can easily speak of digital literacy. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kakuru, and thank you very much to the audience for being interactive. Thank you for that wonderful explanation. We are coming to the end of this session. Before that, I would like Kakuru to tell us what are his parting shots in what you have presented today, especially in the aspect of safety guidelines in the digital journey. Give us your parting shots as we wrap up.
Okay, thank you, Diana. My parting shots are quite very simple. To the people on this platform, always know that one, you are your first line of defense when it comes to digital, meaning that at onboarding, when you go to any financial institution, including mobile money, you need to give the right information to make it simpler for identification, to make it simpler for transaction movement. But that said, the second line of defense would be then your understanding of the different security features offered by this financial institution. Then secondly, when it comes to the whole scope of digital, we need to look at it as something that is here to solve our day-to-day needs rather than something that is here to threaten our jobs. If you look at it as a threat, then it would mean you'll be in acceptance of, it will be acceptance of defeat. It's not very good to accept defeat, but rather it's good to say that what do I need to do to be identified as a required resource for the future? And through things like that, if you put them together, the job is covered, your security is covered. Then it will come to the transactability. We need as a team to adapt the different digital services offered by different banks, offered by different fintechs, so that we experience them and understand why they are there. As most of you here, you will understand there are some who are bankers, there are some who are in their own businesses, and then there are some who are in regulatory systems. If you look out and see the different loopholes you might find on a digital platform, it's very good to give feedback so that this can be resolved, and then it will also benefit you as the person or as the user. So these are the insights that I talked about. Then also when you identify something that you feel is a problem to many, but can be solutioned digitally, it's very good for you to think of a fintech you can look at and talk to them about this solution. Of course, if you feel it's monetary, never look at monetary value of any digital services in its first scale of development, but look at the problem it's solving. The money will come later. Most of the times, most digital services that have been successful, I want you to look at the likes of Facebook, which came out as a social media. Right now, it has an option to pay money and send money. And I think the future is limitless for such platforms. Meaning, if you find a problem that you can solve, scale it up, the future is really, really fruitful for people like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Farouk, for those parting shots. Thank you, audience, for attending. I just want to once again thank the strategic partners of UIBFS, that is Bank of Uganda, Uganda Bankers Association, Financial Sector Deepening Uganda, FITSPA, Uganda Insurers Association, and Summit Consulting. Then we have the platinum sponsors, that is Bank of Africa. We have other sponsors like EcoBank, Equity, KCB, Absa Bank, EFC Uganda, Finca Uganda, Equity Bank, Pride Microfinance, Ugaford, Stanbic Bank, Opportunity, Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, BRAC Uganda, Housing Finance Bank, Centenary Bank, and Diamond Trust Bank. I'd just like to take this time on behalf of UIBFS to thank all the sponsors. It has been a wonderful session. I want to also remind the audience that tomorrow we have a summit. There's a digital, to crown up, this week has been the Digital Financial Literacy Week. So to crown it up, we have a summit tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Please tune in. And the theme of the summit is delivering inclusive financial services, including technology, using technology, that is security, safety, efficiency, and client centricity. Please take time to attend, and I'd like to thank you so much for being a very good audience. Thank you.
Your money can enable you to live a better life only when you budget and save before you spend. Act now. Learn how to manage your income and expenditure correctly at the Banking Financial Services Awareness Month. Meet the financial experts. Learn how to deal with financial hardships like those caused by COVID-19. Be money smart. Be part of the Banking and Financial Services Awareness Month. Visit www.yourmoneycan.or.ug. Brought to you by the Uganda Institute of Banking and Financial Services, UIBFS.